Hey folks, welcome to another review with yours truly, Sam Healey. Today we're taking a look at my first Bohnanza. Now, I've had a copy of Bohnanza in my collection for quite some time, probably going on a decade now, or somewhere close to that. So when we got this into Dice Tower headquarters, it kind of piqued my interest. I'm usually not one to give reviews of kids games because I just don't play that many of them. I play a few that my son really enjoys to play, but other than that, I don't really play too many of them. So when this one came around, it just kind of piqued my interest, thought I would take it home, see how my son handled it, and went from there. Much like in classic Bohnanza, in my first Bohnanza, each player is going to be taking on the role of a bean farmer that is trying to collect as much money as he can from planting and harvesting beans. The problem is that he is restricted to only 2 bean fields at the beginning of the game. Now, as you add in some of the advanced rules, there is the possibility of having a 3rd bean field on the table, but for my first Bohnanza, the basic game is you start with 2 bean fields, and that's pretty much what you have for the entirety of the game. Your hand is played face up. You have to keep them in order. You cannot reshuffle, and for example, I would not be able to move this over here like that. You have to keep them in the order that you were dealt them, but your hand is played open. The first thing that you'll do on your turn is you'll plant beans. You must plant the first bean in your field. You can plant the second bean in your second field if you would like to, but you don't have to. You must always plant the first bean, however. So in this particular situation, I've decided to go ahead and plant both of my beans in their respective fields. And now the second thing I do is I'm able to trade with other players, and that would require me to flip over the top 2 cards from the draw pile. And now these 2 cards I can trade away, as well as any of these cards in my row as well. I can trade them for cards that are in this row and other players' tableaus, but I can't trade them for these cards right here. So it's just these and these that I'm wanting to place. Now, I don't have to trade these cards away. For example, this stink bean here, I would like to put into my field. All right, just like that. But this sour bean here, I might want to trade it away because I don't have anything coming up here pretty soon, except for this one right here. But maybe other people want to trade, and they'll want to trade for me. For example, my opponent over here may say, hey, I'll give you this mean bean if you give me that sour bean. And I'll say, sure, we'll go ahead and do that. So I'll give that to him, and any traded cards must be placed in your field. They cannot be put in your hand down here. And they cannot be used for a future trade in that same round to another player. Now, once I have finished trading, I don't have any more cards to get rid of. You can also give the card away for nothing in return, but the opponent that you're trying to give it to has to be willing to accept it. And then the last thing that we do on our turn is we draw 3 cards, again, keeping them in order the way that it goes here, like so. Now, one thing that I didn't mention is that as soon as you have enough beans in your field to harvest them, you must do that. The way that is denoted is by the beanometer down here at the bottom of the card. It has the number 2, and then it has 1 coin there. That means that if I have 2 of these beans in my field, I can harvest them and get 1 coin. So I am going to do that. I'm going to harvest both of these. I turn one over for a coin, and I keep that here. And then this is put into the discard pile. Here, the mean beans, because there are more of them in the deck, they have to have more beans in the field in order to get the same number of coins. So because I only have 2 mean beans here, I have to wait until I get 3 more before I can harvest. Now, one of the differences between Classic Bohnanza and My First Bohnanza is that there is a mixed patch rule, which states that, for example, if I have these two beans and I need to plant a third one for whatever reason, I can put that third one into a field that already has a different bean type, with the caveat being is that no further of the original beans can be played or harvested until the new bean has been harvested. So that is a new flexibility that My First Bohnanza affords to the younger learners of the game, so that it isn't as restrictive, of course. In a 3-player game, the game is played in this fashion, with players taking their turns one after the other until the draw pile is exhausted one time, and then whoever has the most coins at the end of that is the winner. In a 4-player game, the draw pile would need to be exhausted twice before the game would end and coins are counted. In a 5-player game, 3 times through the draw pile is the length of the game. Whoever has the most coins at the end of the game wins. Now, in this very basic version of the game that I've showed you, you're only basically dealing with about half the cards that come in the game. And as you can see, they have only one beanometer there, and that is to provide a very basic introductory value to the game, so that the person that you're teaching can have a very easy slide into the mechanics of the game. You don't ever have to worry about, do I hold on and wait for that higher payout to come, as you can see in these other cards here. But so you start off playing with about half the cards in the deck, and then you can add in these other cards that come. You know, we have Princess Beans and Dragon Beans and Sword Beans, and you have Magic Beans and Dwarf Beans and Giant Beans, and these can be added in later after your young one has grasped all of the mechanics of the game. You can add these in to add a little bit of more tension here, because do I go ahead and harvest my 2 that I have, or do I try to get another one and get some more money? Those kinds of decisions as they are incrementally added throughout the course of the game. So that is a general outlook on My First Bohnanza. Let's get to my final thoughts. So that's pretty much it. There are a few slight changes that make it just really a lot more simple to understand how to play Bohnanza. Playing with your hand open to begin with really makes a difference, because the people that are playing with that younger player have the opportunity to help that person understand the different decisions that they have to make throughout the course of the game. I like how you basically only use half the cards to start off with, because that does make a huge difference in the number of decisions that you have to make. You can really just focus on the mechanics of the game rather than some of the meatier decisions that will come later on as those advanced rules are added in. Having only one beanometer on those bean cards really simplifies the game much more than you would think. My 6-year-old was very easily able to grasp all of the mechanics within 2 turns of the games that we played, and he really did enjoy the game a lot and has asked to play me a couple of times since. So the idea behind this idea of My First Bohnanza really does make a difference, because it doesn't feel like you're teaching an adult game to a child. It feels like you're teaching a kid version of the adult game that they can understand a lot quicker and a lot easier. And then as you begin adding the different advanced rules that come in the game, you can do things like, you know, adding all the cards into play instead of only using half the deck. And when you do that, you open up to all 3 bean fields. You don't have to purchase the third one. You just start with 3 bean fields, and now you're using all of the cards in the game. And then after that, it says that you can add in the concept where a harvest doesn't score. So when you have to remove, when you have to add a card and you don't have any open fields, well, you have to harvest for nothing. And that adds in a concept. And of course, at this point, the mixed patch rule would step aside. But then you can do other things like where you still start with only 2 bean fields, and you have to add the third one. You have to purchase that third one. And then you have to start playing with your cards in hand rather than having them open up on the table. So as you add these different advanced rules, it really starts feeling more and more like classic Bohnanza, but you're easing them into it, and you're kind of letting them take it at their own pace. So if you have a youngin' in your house that you just want to start tailoring into some of the games, giving them the option to play games, you know, of course not forcing them on it or anything like that, but giving them an easy step into our hobby, this is a great way to start doing it. So that has been today my first Bohnanza from Rio Grande Games, and we'll see you guys on the flip side.